Welcome to the TCPalm Editorial Board meeting to interview candidates for Indian River County Hospital District, Seat 4. I'm Larry Reisman, columnist and community editor, and I'm joined by fellow editorial board members Adam Neal, editor and news director, Blake Fontenay and Ed Killer, columnist, and Louise Philippine, a reader advisory board member. Special thanks to our candidates today for meeting with us and streamlining the process by completing questionnaires ahead of time. Board members have reviewed them. Questionnaires and replays of our editorial board interviews can be found at tcpalm.com. They'll be posted shortly. At the conclusion of this interview, editorial board members will discuss possibly writing an editorial to recommend a candidate in this race. I'll lead the questioning and open it up to other editorial board members at the end. We might end up having more of a conversation than just a simple Q&A. Our goal is to be completed in about 45 minutes. Because of our time constraints, we ask that you keep your responses concise. So we'll start the questioning with Mr. Jones. What led you to A, seeking a spot on the board, and B, this specific seat?
Well, I've had this seat since 2014, and so I just kept the same seat. You know, that the reason I ran in 2014 was because I felt the Indian River Medical Center was bifurcated in its serving the public. It did a really good job on raising funds from philanthropy and created the Heart Center, and I was involved with a lot of that. But on the other hand, the Medicare Center for Medicare Services analysis of patient outcomes, I thought was not as good as it ought to be. And I thought there were things they could do, so I ran in 2014. So I've been in this position since then. And maybe we can go over, as far as I'm concerned, I'm running again to keep doing what I've been doing, which we can go into if you like, but in keeping with the direction to keep my answers concise, I'll just stop there.
Thanks, Alan. Paul, would you like me to repeat the question, or?
No, I'm good, thank you. Okay. I'm running because I think I've got some unique ways to contribute. I have been aware of difficulties within the hospital district. They're long-standing, as Larry, as you know, you've been here for a while, and complicated. We thought that some of those issues were solved when Cleveland Clinic was invited to take over the operations of the hospital. I have been involved with, engaged with the medical community through my legal career in terms of being in doctor's offices, and hearing some of the difficulties that they were experiencing, some of the outside doctors. And what got my attention is just the discussion out in the real world in our community in terms of how they feel the level of service from the hospital is being provided, the satisfaction among the employees who are working there, as well as the independent physicians and their needs and whether they're being met or do they have somebody who's looking at them as more of a competitor. So my intentions, I looked at the lease agreement. I've looked at the special act creating the district and felt that there were some areas that need attention with the idea of helping Cleveland Clinic serve our community better. And I would assume they want to do that. I would assume they want their employees to be happier. I would assume they want the independent physicians in the community feel better about the work that they're doing. And more importantly, that the patients feel like the hospital is serving them. So I think my intention in running is to explore some of those topics and those issues and try and find some solutions to the problems in order to improve the level of service for our community.
Paul, to answer the second part of that question, why did you decide to run in this seat?
In this particular seat, quite honestly, I was approached to run. There were several people in one of the other races. Miss Cunningham, she ran unopposed, but I didn't feel that was probably a good place for me to try to enter the race, and felt that this would be a good spot for me to run, given the dynamics of the current composition of the board and some of the other races that exist for the district.
Thank you. Just going back to get to your first response, can you be more specific about changes you think that need to be made?
Sure. Well, first we need to find out, ask the question among the staff, why do you feel the way that you feel? What could be done differently? And work toward improving compensation. I know that the staffing levels for the district are part of a larger problem. We have a great nursing program with IRSC. With the district's money, there could be some exploration and some scholarshiping, working with the school district, Indian River School District, with their tech programs in terms of trying to promote and develop the CNA programs and other supportive radiology techs and those sorts of things that would help kind of feed into the areas of need. With regard to the lease document, I think is a real focal point. There are some problems I see in the lease. There's a non-compete that eventually is going to be a problem for the district. That non-compete, if you read it, it suggests that the district would be prohibited from competing with Cleveland Clinic, so that if there was a need to be identified, and Cleveland Clinic didn't feel like they wanted to fill it, and we wanted to explore recruiting, if you will, another provider to come to the community, we wouldn't be able to do that. Long term, the community does need to be exploring where our next area of need will be, and likely it's going to be someplace out by the I-95 corridor. If it's not Cleveland Clinic to be involved in that hospital, can the district be involved in that process? And I would submit that there's some lawyers for Cleveland Clinic that would point to that provision in the contract and say, no, you can't compete with us. You can't be involved with an entity that would compete with us. So no. Additionally, I think that the district has a statutory responsibility, if you look at the special act, to be engaged in staffing issues, not day-to-day reviews, compensation, and what have you, but exploring the questions of why the employees aren't happy, what can be done to improve the work environment, what can be done to improve patient satisfaction. That's another area, kind of an exit interview survey process to find out what can be done, what it is that's going on. That when I talk to people about Cleveland Clinic, most often it's a negative response. And that's unfortunate. And I don't think Cleveland Clinic wants that. And I would like to be able to be involved in a process to help them fix that.
Thank you, Paul. Alan, since you're on the district board, would you like to respond to any of that?
Yeah. Actually, there are 5 principal reasons that I'm running again. One of them is to help Cleveland Clinic complete its transition to assuming Indian River Medical Center. I agree with some of the comments regarding patient satisfaction. But what I do know, database, Center for Medicare Services, ranks hospitals, as you may know, rates them overall with a simplistic star rating. But underneath that is a bevy of measurements on patient outcomes and patient satisfaction. Indian River Medical Center always had a 2-star rating, which meant out of 5 being excellent and 1 being poor. but it's not equal. A 2-star rating means you're in the bottom 24% of hospitals in the United States in terms of the metric outcomes as measured by the Center for Medicare Services. Cleveland Clinic took over this hospital in January 2019, and now Cleveland Clinic Indian River Hospital, based on patient outcomes, is a 4-star hospital, meaning it ranks in the top third of all hospitals in the United States. U.S. News did a study and said it now ranks Cleveland Clinic Indian River Hospital. Their overall analysis is that it ranks 18th. It was 31st when in the state of Florida when Cleveland Clinic took it over. So in terms of patient outcomes, I think the data really shows that they're doing a terrific job. Now, as it relates to staff, I think it's a fair point. The first year, Cleveland Clinic, by contract, retained virtually all the employees of the hospital, and then they began to transition and make changes. Some of those changes irritated people in the community because it was their doctor that left. And they left for all kinds of reasons. Some because they weren't as up to the high standards of Cleveland Clinic. Others because they didn't like the processes that Cleveland Clinic institute. Others because they had friends that left and they felt more isolated. Others because they brought in younger people to run departments they thought they should run. For every person that left, there was a reason. I think that 29 doctors overall that have left Cleveland Clinic in the last couple of years, the Cleveland Clinic's hired 34 well-qualified people. And there are a lot of individual examples of that. In terms of the nursing and the work with Indian River State College, Cleveland Clinic's doing that right now. They have scholarship programs to try to develop a stronger nursing base. They've not asked us to support that. They're doing it themselves. And we endorse it. So I'll sum this up by saying, in this conversation, this is exactly why I'm running. Because I've achieved pretty much what I set out to do, except Cleveland Clinic has not really completed this transition. It's providing excellent care, and incidentally, I was one of those patients in late April and early May, and so I got to see it firsthand. And I can tell you that my treatment at the hospital was outstanding, and I feel I want to see that continue, and I think the standards for Cleveland Clinic, which are nationally recognized, I want them to be implemented here, and I don't want their transition to be disrupted by people that have anecdotal opinions that are not supported by data and fact.
Thanks, Alan. Let's start with you on the next question. I know we gave Paul a couple of opportunities there. Can you talk about the overall picture in Indian River County? Both hospitals in the county are owned by national corporations, nonprofits, that have been adding physician practices. Is that good or bad or somewhere in between? What should the district's role, if any, be with regard to that?
Well, we've already made the decision. We want to have a national organization running our hospital. My view is, in fact, we did substantial analysis, which I was a part of, on the Indian River Medical Center. And we hired a consultant and we worked with the board of Indian River Medical Center. And it didn't take us very long to conclude that a standalone hospital in the system in the United States, particularly for insurance reimbursement, can't survive in the long term. It just can't. And I'll give you one clear example that we discovered in our analysis. And that is the reimbursement that Indian River Medical Center received for the same procedures that are done in larger hospital chains was 1/3 to 1/2. At the time, I was naive about insurance. I thought insurance companies were there to try to drive down the costs to protect the ratepayers that are purchasing insurance. I found out that's not true. What they're really interested in is market share. And so you get substantially more reimbursement for a knee replacement or for any number of procedures that you can think of if you're in a chain of hospitals where the market share is important to the insurance company. I found that outrageous. That's in some states, it's not even legal. But it's legal in Florida. It's legal in most states. And that's, and the second thing I would say regarding Cleveland Clinic is that every hospital group we talked to, we ended up with 32 hospital chains that were interested in acquiring or leasing the Indian River Medical Center. We narrowed it down to 12 and then eventually down to 4. Every one of them said that patient first. But my analysis based on the data is that Cleveland Clinic really means it and lives it. And they have their processes to try to control excellence. So in terms of overview, in terms of the role of the hospital district, one of our strategies was to, once we began to engage in bringing in this case, Cleveland Clinic, was to reduce the cost to the taxpayer. So the millage is going to go down over 42% from where it was in 2016. And on top of that, this year, the tax revenues that we're going to bill for will be something like 12.7 million. We're still working on finalizing the budget versus 15 million last year. But in the process, we're providing more services to individuals within the community. And I think that the district itself is in transition. And so the reason specifically that I told the district trustees when I decided to run again this year was I wanted to help Cleveland Clinic in particular complete its transition. And we don't know what it's like to have a world-class hospital. We had a good one that did a lot of good things, particularly, as I say, philanthropically. But in terms of individual patient care, it was, at least as rated by CMS, Center for Medicare Services, as well below average. Now it's rated above average. Then there are other things that I've particularly gotten involved in, I'm very proud of. One of them is the Partners in Women's Health program, which I can spend time talking about. One is the Gifford Health Center, which is now a full service facility in Gifford instead of a limited pediatric service. The district established it in 2003, but it wasn't doing what we wanted it to do. Now it is. And so in any event, I think that's an overview. I'll be glad to follow up with questions.
Thank you. Paul, would you like me to repeat the question?
Understood the question. It was the relationship between hospitals and private practitioners, independent physicians, in essence, if I heard it correctly. Go
Yeah,
ahead and read.
let me read it again.
It's been a while.
Both hospitals in Indian River County are owned by national corporations that have been adding physician practices. Is that good? Bad? What should the district's role be with regard to this?
Well, I think that's probably a reality. It's how it's done that matters. Um, the experience that we're having and that I'm hearing from the staff at the hospital and those in our community, the patients, is a feeling that too much of the decision making is driven by Cleveland, not Vero Beach. And I think there's inevitability to, we'll call it corporate medicine. I don't mean it as a negative. And as an aside, I want to make sure that I'm clear. I am not suggesting that the relationship with Cleveland Clinic be ended or anything remotely like that. My suggestion is, I think there's an imperative for the district on behalf of patients, on behalf of independent physicians, on behalf of the employees, to be more actively involved in the hospital. And if you were to look to our north with Health First, it's run like a national entity, but it's owned locally, and there is definitely a more local feel. I'm familiar with some of the members of the management team, and I've been around some of the physicians there, and my family receives a lot of treatment there. I think Cleveland Clinic could learn from that model in terms of rather than how do you do it in Cleveland, how should it be done in Vero Beach? And I think that distinctive is huge in terms of patient satisfaction and the ability to serve the community. So I am not throwing rocks at the expertise of Cleveland Clinic, nor do I intend to. What I am intending to say is that I would like to help Cleveland Clinic have better, and it may be information management, with regard to the employees. I ran a statewide law firm, very little turnover. And I think that running a good ship, having happy employees, having good customers are not mutually exclusive. And it needs to be explored as to why we're dealing with and hearing the kinds of things about dissatisfaction that we're hearing. And I also think that private practice independent physicians are a necessary part of our medical community and should be. And that's a separation between the interests of Cleveland Clinic and the interest and calling of the hospital district. Hospital district should be asking, how can we help Cleveland Clinic, help the local physicians feel better about their relationship? And when you look at where and this is going to seem snarky, and I really am not trying to be, I really am thinking that there's a shift in the orientation that the district has made away from these sorts of topics and really focusing. The box has been checked. We've got Cleveland Clinic here. So we've got two functions. A big umbrella for the hospital district is maintenance, improvement of the quality of care, availability of care, access to care. Under that umbrella is the operation of a hospital, a community hospital. We have hospital districts. They came into being because there were communities that had hospitals that needed the taxpayer support in order to continue to operate. That's less of an issue now, but it's still part of the mandate under the statute is to oversee an operation of a hospital. In addition to that is the indigent care. We're doing the indigent care component well, I would submit, with the funds that are available. I wouldn't argue, but the difficulty that exists in terms of the function, if you look at the current hospital district's annual report, 2021, under the page, what do we do? No mention of the hospital. No mention of the hospital. as a constituent, I would look at that and scratch my head and wonder where's the focus on making sure that Cleveland Clinic is serving the community as well as it can, and addressing some of the issues that we're hearing about in terms of the delays. I know that some of the delays have been taken care of. Then there's a strategic framework document. The only place the word hospital is written on this document is right here on the logo. It's an okay. I mean, I can't argue with the intentions behind it, but it's as if the box on the hospital has been checked with Cleveland Clinic. Job accomplished. We're done, and the focus is over on one half of the umbrella. I want us to do both, and I think Cleveland Clinic should welcome additional assistance and helping them understand why their staff feels the way they do, why some of them in the community, I go in a room and ask, how do y'all feel about Cleveland Clinic? I rarely have anybody that says goody. It's usually a groan. And sure, that's anecdotal to some, in large part, but to ignore that ignores the constituency. It ignores the patient and the need. And we need to find out why people feel that way and help Cleveland Clinic do better. If they're a 4-star, great. Let's build on that. So that's where I want to be. I want to help Cleveland Clinic do better.
Thanks, Paul. So let's just go to the next question, which is sort of in line with what both of you have been talking about, which is
Hey, Larry.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. I think Alan May wanted to respond. I think he had his hand up.
Okay, sure. Go ahead, Alan.
Thanks, I appreciate that. I just wanted to say I think that Paul Westcott has a good point, which I failed to mention. It is a 4-star hospital in terms of patient outcomes, which in my view is most important. And that's quite an improvement over Indian River Medical Center. However, when you just set aside patient satisfaction, it's the same as Indian River Medical Center, 2-star. And so we are working with the hospital. Incidentally, our intention is not to try to run the hospital from the district. We're going to let Cleveland Clinic, we think they have a 100-year record of knowing how to run a hospital. We're not going to interfere with that. On the other hand, I think that he is right to say that you can't ignore the anecdotal comments or even the database patient satisfaction data. I personally met with Greg Rosenkrantz in his office 3 weeks ago, to address some of these topics and try to assist the Cleveland Clinic with some ideas on things that they could do. And Mary Beth Cunningham is on the board. Mary Beth Cunningham is one of the trustees, as I'm sure you know, and the chair of the district. She's on the board and is doing exactly the same thing. Anne Marie McChrystal, who unfortunately is going to retire this year, is doing the same things. So it's not like the district's not doing these things, but it's not our job to run that hospital. And it's our job to oversee Cleveland Clinic and try to help them be successful. I think they know how to run a hospital better than anybody in the country. And I think the data supports that. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thanks, Alan. Let's go to Paul with this question. Can you please cite 3 metrics you will use to help determine whether your board is meeting its mission each year?
3 metrics. Yes. First would be patient satisfaction and patient outcome. I think both of those are quantifiable. Are we meeting those needs? 2, in terms of the indigent care, and the board's doing this, and that is setting up criteria to evaluate the entities that they're financially supporting, to make sure that they are meeting the defined goals, medical, healthcare needs within our community, if they're being met, and they're staying on task. And so that would be a second one. And then for the first year, making sure and exploring the staffing issues, both in terms of making sure the hospital is able to fully operate and function, that there are no staffing shortages that are in any way impeding the ability for Cleveland Clinic to meet the needs of our community, while also helping Cleveland Clinic, as I've said earlier. Why are we having staffing morale issues? What is the difficulty? And hearing from them. Again, when I ran my law firm, I had an open door. I think Cleveland Clinic needs to allow that. But I don't know they create that environment. I think there's fear of retaliation. I'm aware of Dr. Posca. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He was asked by Aaron Grahl to testify in front of the House committee regarding the vaccine mandate statute. And on his way back from Tallahassee, he was contacted by the management of Cleveland Clinic and told that he may have violated a procedure or policy. I looked at it with him and didn't feel like it was a violation, but it took a while for Cleveland Clinic to finally meet with them. When they did meet with them, rather than telling him that he was being let go because he violated that procedure, they pointed to a provision in his contract that allowed Cleveland Clinic to let him go without cause with 90 days notice. I don't know how far that contract gets used, how far it's pushed down, but that's troubling to me. And it should be troubling to the hospital district as well, that we have an entity that has that hammer over some of its employees. I would want them to be comfortable being able to report and deal with. So the relationship between our hospital and its employees is critical, and improving the satisfaction there is measurable, I would submit, and would be a significant item for consideration and development and to be dealt with.
Thank you, Paul. Alan, can you please tell me what 3 metrics you would use to help determine whether your board is meeting its mission each year?
Well, I think Paul probably said it about right. I think we want to work with Cleveland Clinic to help them succeed. In terms of metrics, I use the CMS star rating. And I think they're partway to success, but not 100%. And we ought to do what's helpful. In terms of indigent care, I think my principal contribution to I don't know if it's one of my principal contributions, I feel, over the last 8 years has been establishing metrics on each of the agencies for which we provide funds. So I'll give you one that I'm particularly proud of because I got involved with is Partners in Women's Health. And that is a service that the district created in the 90s to provide prenatal care to anybody, regardless of their ability to pay. It's evolved to be prenatal, postpartum, as well as gynecological care. It's principally for Medicaid eligible patients, many of whom are minorities and have a high number of risk factors in a successful delivery of a baby. I think this is important to the county's health. So I want to give you some data that we've created metrics to, among other things, to measure the success of this program. And so, for example, maternal mortality, that's a big deal. Does the mother live or die? In Indian River County, for the last 3 years, it's been zero. And as a matter of fact, it's been zero since before 2010, so over 13 years. Florida has 20 deaths per 100,000 births. Not very many, but it isn't zero, and it's not even close to zero. Infant mortality, which measures whether a child is born alive and lives for a year. In Indian River County, through the Partners Program, it's 3.5. The state is 5.9 per 1,000 births. There's another way to measure that, neonatal mortality, which is probably more attributable to the care at Cleveland Clinic, because is a baby born alive and does it live 30 days? Neonatal mortality in Indian River County is 1.9. The state is 4. We're less than half. And then fetal deaths, stillborn babies. Per 1,000 births, there are 4.6 deaths in Indian River County. In the state, it's 6.8. So the data shows that Cleveland Clinic is really doing a great job executing a program on behalf of the district. Now, is it perfect? No, we have some patient satisfaction issues, which we're working on right now. In fact, the district yesterday tentatively approved hiring 3 more people to answer the phones, because we're now going to be given what they call PEPW authority, so that it's one less step for the mother. Previously, the mother had to call the health department to find out if she was in fact pregnant and eligible for Medicaid, and then she got referred to generally the Partners in Women's Health Program. Now they can call straight to Cleveland Clinic, and we want to be sure that phone's answered when they call. So in terms of indigent care, that's one example of things that we're doing. In terms of the third thing, I agree with the concept of working with Cleveland Clinic to help them have a better relationship in the community. But I don't go as far as trying to tell them how to run their hospital and which employees are the best. I think they're way more qualified than I to make those decisions. So I hope that answers your question with some data supported facts.
Thank you, Editorial Board members who might have any questions.
I'll jump in if no one else will. Just a question for both of the candidates, and I forget where we are in the order here. I suppose, Mr. Jones, this one goes to you first. But one question we ask a lot of candidates who appear before us: tell us your personal experiences with one ethical dilemma you faced in your career and how you dealt with it.
You know, my background was with Merrill Lynch when I was in the business career. And you know, that profession is fraught with conflicts of interest. So I'm not going to go into detail there. All I'm going to say is that there was one incident that particularly comes to mind where I fired a client. It was one of my biggest clients. Now, this is early in my career. But I had to call that client. At least I felt like I had to call that client and say that the actions you're taking are benefiting me, but they're not benefiting you. Too many transactions, and as much as it grieves me to say it, I'm going to have to ask you to leave Merrill Lynch. He, in turn, called the manager of my office and was outraged. The manager came and talked to me. In any event, we transferred the account to another place. So I believe in doing what's right for the customer. It comes back, and I believe that's applicable to medical care. Just do what's right for the patient. Everything else will take care of itself, and including, I think, staff issues. When people are proud to work for an organization that is putting patients first and is proving that patient outcomes are superior. And I think the staffing issues will resolve when they're part of an organization like that. As I said, Cleveland Clinic is now in transition. I just want to help them complete that transition.
I come from a profession where legal ethics might seem like an oxymoron to a lot of people. And so ethical issues come up quite a bit, and training lawyers to avoid the temptations of trying to make a client happy by playing fast and loose, being honest with your opponents and the judges and the courts is the fabric of how the practice should operate. I'm part of two ends of court it's both of their missions. The American Ends of Court's mission is to instill ethical values and mentor young lawyers in the profession. But in my personal life, I was in a leadership position on a board where somebody I cared about a great deal, a good friend of mine, a mentor, had put the board in the position of having to make a very tough decision about that. And it wasn't a moral failure or anything like that. But it's, the difficulty was separating my commitment and obligation to the organization. And the person involved may not have felt the same way, but by doing the right thing in terms of the decision that had to be made, was probably in the long run beneficial for that individual as well. It was a tough spot. It was a tough decision. Somebody, again, that I cared about a great deal, and as well as a lot of the members who relied on this organization cared for him deeply, and it was a tough decision that was going to require a lot of work and helping the constituency understand the necessity for the decision, the basis for the decision, while at the same time, having the misfortune of a damaged relationship. That was really a tough spot to be in. I've been in similar situations where I've seen organizations that I've been part of make mistakes, and their leadership were friends, and having to help them do my best to help them understand the mistakes that were being made, and staying true to the mission, staying true to the calling in the process. So I don't know if that answers your question. I hope it does. I think that if you look to the mission of the organization, you look at your guiding principles, legal, ethical, they should tell you what to do and be a guidepost for you.
Thank you, Paul. Anybody else have a question? Okay. Seeing none, we are kind of running out of time here. Paul, what if you take 1 minute? If there's anything that we haven't addressed that you'd like to address, can you please address it now? We'll give you a minute, and then we'll go to Alan for 1 minute as well. I'm not going to time you. You're on your honor here.
Sure. I'll try to be brief. Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity, the attention, and the work of reviewing the materials and preparing for today. We have a long-term relationship with Cleveland Clinic. It's a lease with initial term of 30 years with 3 15-year extensions. I am committed to making sure that we get the best Cleveland Clinic possible for us, and that the three communities, or 3 elements of the community that I see: the patient care first, staff second, and then how the hospitals and the district, more importantly, it's the district, not Cleveland Clinic, that carries these responsibilities that need to be met and served. The district serving the independent doctors that are feeling pressure given our current environment that's being created. I'm committed to working toward that. Committed to working with the board. And I believe my background as an attorney, currently I'm a mediator. I've been a full-time mediator for 7 years, going on 8 years. Give me the ability to help solve problems. My practice was involved in a lot of problem solving. My involvement in boards, a lot of problem solving, listening, setting goals as part of the de-escalation and problem solving, de-escalation of emotions and problem solving, identify the goals, figure out a strategy to get there, and moving forward that way. That's been the fabric of well over 30 years in the practice of law and mediation. I think that the district would benefit from that skill set and my interest in serving the community, helping out and helping Cleveland Clinic in the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Alan, anything you'd like to say?
Again, this was fun to be able to do this. I appreciate the opportunity. As far as I'm concerned, I'm running on my record. I've been here 8 years, been the treasurer for 8 years. In 2016, which was the last year that I sort of inherited a budget, the millage was 0.99. This year it'll be at least 42% less than that, and maybe more like 45% less than that. While at the same time, we're doing more for indigent care than we've ever done. And that didn't just happen. The idea of having a major hospital group take over our hospital and make the hospital more efficient in terms of reimbursements, that is providing better care than was provided before, I think didn't happen by accident. And the fact that we're able to accomplish this and reduce the millage was all part of our strategy. While we did benefit from rising property values, which affected this to some degree, I would point out that there's no other taxing authority in the last 3 years that has reduced millage at all, much less 40-something%. So I think we're doing more with less. And I'm running on that history of having done that and want to keep doing it. Thank you again for the opportunity. And I'm glad to meet Paul Westcott. It's the first time I've met him. I didn't know why he picked on me, but I'm impressed with a lot of the things he had to say. We probably agree on some of them, but obviously there are distinctions. I'm going to let Cleveland Clinic run their hospital. I'm just going to try to assist them.
Thank you both. We appreciate you both coming on, filling out the questionnaires. And thank you for volunteering to run a campaign. This job doesn't pay anything, so and it's not easy to do what you're doing, but it's an essential part of our society. For everybody else, please continue to visit TCPalm.com for your latest election information. Thank you, and we'll see you again sometime later.
Okay,
Thank you.